as a party gear up for a Buhari to Tinubu transition. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimale in Abuja. There's been some back and forth between the federal government and the Labour Party presidential candidate, Bitobi, and his vice, Dati Baba Ahmed. The federal government has accused them of treason. The Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, gave the government's position during engagements with journalists in Washington, D.C. in the U.S. Mr. Mohammed accused the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, of inciting people to violence over the outcome of the presidential elections, saying it is treasonable. The minister was quoted to have said, quote, Obi and his vice, Dati Ahmed, cannot be threatening Nigerians that if the president-elect Bola Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress, APC, is not sworn in on 29th of May, it will be the end of democracy in Nigeria. This is treason. You cannot be inviting insurrection. This is what they are doing. Obi's statement is that of a desperate person. He's not a Democrat. That he claimed to be a Democrat should not believe in democracy only when he wins an election. End of quote. Meanwhile, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, has criticized the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, over the allegations of inciting a post-election insurrection. Peter Obi took to Twitter today, a microblogging site, to denounce the allegations and tensions over a purported plot to install an interim government. Quote, Obi says, it is most unfortunate that these consistent efforts to portray me quite contrary to what I am and my core values is coming from such high quarters. Mr. Lai accusing me of stoking insurrection is totally malicious and fictitious. I have never discussed or encouraged anyone to undermine the Nigerian state. I have never sponsored or preached any action against the Nigerian state. I'm committed to due process and presently seeking redress in the court. I urge those engaged in the marketing process to stop presenting Nigeria in such a bad light. End of quote. So much to talk about today. You heard about the kidnap of about 10 persons in Kaduna State. Now, if the Buhari government says it wants to fix insecurity in Nigeria, that, you remember, in 2015, when the president said he's one of the 3 cardinal points of his administration, going to almost 8 years now of the government being in office. How much of that have they been able to do? We have the hundreds of people, the figures of hundreds of people that have been killed in the last few years. What will the Tinubu presidency do differently? We set an agenda and talking about these issues tonight on the program. We have an in-depth analysis of all of those for you on the program. Nigerians, insecurity in your area, what are the solutions? We'll be telling you tonight. Also, we'll be looking at the situation in the All Progressives Congress, APC. There's different wrangling here and there in the chapters of the party in different parts of the country. That also gets our attention. But stick around with me, everyone, because we need to check out the political roundup stories and bring you up to speed with what is happening around the country. So here's my colleague, Kela Megwa, with your political roundup stories.
Thank you, Sheung. Good evening. I am Kayla Megwa, and these are your political roundup stories for today. President Muhammadu Buhari has today met with the governors of Ogun and Yobe states at the presidential villa in Abuja. A senator-elect from Imo State, Osita Izunazo, also met with the president, where he presented him with his certificate of return. After the meeting, Senator Izunazo told State House correspondents that he is the most senior of the senators from the Southeast region and most capable for the Senate President job.
I'm the highest-ranking senator in both Southeast and South-South. I came to the Senate in 2007. I was in the House of Reps. I've been in the party for 5 good solid years.
The House of Representatives is condemning the call for an interim government. This follows a motion of urgent national importance raised by Honorable Nyime Idem, drawing the attention of the House to the statement issued by the Department of State Services warning of plots to install an interim government following the outcome of the presidential election. The House is urging the security agencies to stay alert.
Interim government is undemocratic. Interim government is not something that we should support. taking into consideration that our democracy is a young one.
Members of the People's Democratic Party in Rivers State have continued their protest at the office of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in Port Harcourt, the state capital, over the inspection of electoral materials. Today's protest had more members of the State House of Assembly, including the Deputy Speaker, Edison Ehie, Leader of the House, Martins Amahule, and Chairman of Ikwe Local Government Area, Samuel Wanosike, join in. The party is demanding for joint inspection of electoral materials and issuance of CTC of result sheets. The PDP members are also calling for the arrest and prosecution of the APC governorship candidate Tonye Cole for alleged murder. The Plateau State government has inaugurated a central planning committee for a smooth handing over to the incoming government. Governor Simon Lalong gave the assurances in a brief ceremony at the government house in Little Rayfield, Jos. He promised to hand over to his successor in a seamless and rancor-free manner and charged members of the committee to work in harmony towards a successful process.
The committee is expected to work painstakingly, cooperatively, and in one accord for the success of the transition program.
Zamfara State Governor Mr. Bello Matawale is asking citizens of the state to be law-abiding and respect the rule of law. Speaking to journalists after a meeting with some members of his cabinet in Gusau, Governor Matawale notes that under no circumstance should anyone disrespect the law of the land, as government will not hesitate to deal decisively with anyone culpable.
People have to be very careful, and they should know that still I'm a governor till the 29th of May, so people have to abide with the law and the regulations of the state.
Labour Party candidates in the March 18 State Assembly elections in Imo State are alleging that there is a deliberate plot by the INEC Resident Electoral Commissioner in the state to frustrate their efforts to reclaim their mandates in court by refusing to provide them with the certified true copies of electoral materials needed to tender in court within the stipulated time. The candidates told a news conference in Owerri, the Imo State capital, that they are dismayed over what they term unprofessional conduct exhibited by INEC in Imo State during the elections. They accused INEC of colluding with the ruling APC in the state to truncate the will of the people.
This sham of an election in Imo State was made possible by the action as well as inaction of the Imo State Rec, Professor Sylvia Abu.
The National Youth Council of Nigeria is urging candidates of various political parties who are not satisfied with the results of the just concluded elections across the country to seek redress in court rather than resorting to violence. The president of the council, Mr. Sokubo, was speaking during a courtesy visit to Taraba State Governor-elect, Mr. Agbu Kefas, in Jalingo, the state capital. Mr. Sokubo described the victory of the governor-elect as an attestation for the not too young to run law signed by President Muhammadu Buhari.
I will appeal to all political parties to join hands with you, to do their stores and build this thing together with you.
Those are your political roundup stories for today. It's back to you, Shim.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. First, our first check for the conversation is about the internal issues within the All Progressives Congress, APC. Elections are over. The party had some huge losses, and it made some inroads and successes in some part of the country. That needs some introspection, isn't it, for anyone who's gone into such an enormous task of prosecuting or executing an election. A leading political party such as the APC will be thinking of the next step, especially because there will be a transition from a Buhari government to a Tinubu-led presidency. There are cases in court. What are the expectations in that party? Don't forget that the party also has its internal wranglings in Delta, Rivers, and some part of the country. There seems to be some trouble. Tonight, let's get some perspectives. I'm being joined tonight by the National Publicity Secretary of the APC, Mr. Felix Moka. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Sheon, for having me.
Let's begin with from the bad news to perhaps that's what people say. Oh, where do you want me to begin?
That's right.
The bad or the good?
Oh, the good.
But let's begin with the bad one.
Yes.
Things are not really going well in some areas. The party is sharply divided after the election in some part of the country. And interestingly, you are from Delta State, and it looks to me that the center is not holding.
Oh, the center is firm. The center is holding in Delta. We had an election which was, keenly contested by our candidate, Senator Vioma Agege, who is the current Deputy President of the Senate of the Federal Republic. And he put up
a formidable fight for the office of governor, which he contested. Now, the last has not been heard of that story. Yes, the candidate of the PDP was declared as winner, but make no mistake, Senator Bioma Agege is approaching the tribunal and contesting very vigorously the outcome of that election. And as law-abiding citizens, yes, he's elected to be quiet, to take his matter to court, which is what we have urged everyone who lost the election to approach the courts. He's doing just that. And I am quite convinced, I have no doubt whatsoever, that at the end of the day, he will get a fair day in court and actually upturn the outcome, the declared outcome of that election in Delta. Because Delta was a sordid case of election fraud. It was unbelievable what happened. That I was there. I was a witness. So I'm not speaking to what was told to me. I'm speaking to what I witnessed, even in my own unit, which I won.
What happened that that didn't go in your favor?
It was vote buying. All of the
Who
currency.
are those buying votes?
By the PDP, by the OBI, government.
They said in fact, you also participated. These are the allegations coming from the state. That it was a common place. I mean, that your party also partook in it.
People can make allegations, but like I said, I was a witness. I was a participant. I was there
in my vote buying
from beginning to end. All of the currency, the brand new notes, the mint notes that Nigerians were queuing all over the place, in search for, were there, in abundance to Okowa and his, agents, paying people. Even the night before the election.
You say Okowa, did you see him? Did you see him? Because, you are a lawyer, so you know more than just to give, to lay an allegations, mentioning people to a criminal offense, such as vote buying or election manipulation.
No. Okowa, Senator, Anthony Okowa is the current governor of Delta State. He's the leader of the PDP in Delta. So as governor, yes, I think it's fair to attribute to his leadership all of the atrocities committed by the party in Delta under his leadership. Now, I'm not suggesting that in my unit, for instance, Okowa was physically present. He wasn't. But as leader of the PDP in Delta State, my case is that he presided over a mindless scheme of vote buying in Delta, including my unit, which I fought blow by blow and defeated to win my unit, including an attempt by agents and thugs of the PDP to overrun and seize control of my unit when they realized I was winning my unit, and that's Unit 5 in Ward 8 in Eka South of Delta State. But of course, there was good.
That is also the area where the governor comes from.
No,
he's an Eka person too.
No, the governor comes from Eka, northeast.
North, yeah.
I come from Eka South, but Eka Northeast and Eka South, both make up the federal constituency of, the Eka federal constituency. So yes, so he's, a member of the federal constituency, even though from the other
side of the yeah.
That is correct. So in any event.
So in short, you do not agree.
Yes.
With the conduct of the election, and you think that the election was manipulated in your said, is that your position?
It was manipulated. It was a lot of violence unleashed by the PDP. It was a lot of vote buying. It was a lot of fraud perpetrated by the PDP.
So but you know what? You have your evidence, right?
Yes.
And you're taking them to court.
We're taking them to court.
Okay, so we allow you to stay in court. But
absolutely.
The question is that, there are stories coming that your governorship candidate has been suspended from the party. What is the true position? You are a national leader of the party, so you should be able to tell us.
Utterly ridiculous. We have a state executive committee in Delta that was, elected and inaugurated at the last Congress of the party. Anyone can check it out. It's the information is out there. That State Executive Committee is led by Elder Omeni Sobotie. He's the state chairman of APC. Now, in recent days, in the last few days, the party had reason to suspend the person of Cairo Jubo from the party, who is, happens to be from my local government. It was
Before
suspended.
the election? Or
No, after the election, just in the last few days after the election. The party had reason to, follow the constitutional process to suspend him from the party. Now, I would just reference that action by the party was based on Cairo's own self-documented case of anti-party activities, during the election. He made a video by himself documenting and celebrating the outcome of the election, which he takes credit for by his own anti-party activities. So the party, through their own system in Delta State, took steps, reviewed his actions, and initially suspended him, and then had the state ESCO expel him from the party. So by the action...
Has it been confirmed by the party at the national level, that action of the state executive?
No, not yet, because
they have to communicate to the national level.
That's correct. I believe that case is making its way to the national level. But I'm speaking to the action so far by the state chapter of the party, expelling Cairo Jubo from the party. That was done. Now, this matter will, of course, be reviewed by the national chapter of the party, and a final decision will be taken, as I believe the party has a duty to do under its constitution. But that's where things are. Again, to come back to your question originally, which is that Omar Gege was not expelled by the State Executive Committee of the party. Such a decision was never made.
But there was an attempt from his word, isn't it?
No, there was no attempt from his word. Now, what has happened is that Cairo Jubo, who was expelled from the party, got together his minions, I call them, quite frankly, with due respect, political urchins, some of his personal aides. For instance, one Isaac Ulebo, who is from Ika South, my local government, that I know very well, is someone who is known in the local government, signed documents purporting to act in the capacity as the state chairman of the party, and endorsing the suspension of Senator Vioma Gege, our governorship candidate. Now, listen, that is not the executive committee of the party. Like I said, the committee of the party is led by Elder Omeni Sobotie. He is the elected and inaugurated and the certified chairman of the party. That is available everywhere. So Cairo Jubo simply, called up his personal aides to purportedly, announce the suspension of Senator Vioma Gege. That is bogus, absolutely.
This looks to me like a local Delta problem, isn't it? And I would like to ask, because someone like Ovie Omar Gege, not only that it is a governorship candidate of your party in Delta State, he's also a national leader of the party. He is the deputy Senate president. Whose table, or who has the premise, or who has the prerogative of suspending if there is any misdemeanor or any activity that is untoward committed by such a national officer? Who has the powers to suspend him?
Now, the issue of suspension is usually done or initiated and reviewed at the ward level. It will be the elected and certified executive committee of his ward that would normally initiate such a constitutional process. That was not the case here. Cairo Jubo merely got together a few of his assistants, even many of them who are not members of the party, to issue this bogus, irrelevant, absolutely illegitimate.
Or is the
process.
party at the national level looking into this?
You see, these things have a process. The ward takes action, informs the LGA, the local government. The local government reviews, certifies, and informs the state. The state reviews, certifies one way or the other, either for or against the proposed disciplinary action, and then refers to national. While I was in meetings today, I was informed that the suspension, the expulsion of Cairo Jubo, for instance, I was served a copy, which I instructed my director at the party to receive on my behalf, expelling Cairo Ojubo from the party. By his own documented anti-party activities, by his own video evidence, absolutely.
So, Delta is not the only problem you're having. You're having a problem in Rivers State. And there are those who say that those who did not even work for your party at the presidential election. Not only in that, you have issues in Kano. And, to mention, there's a long list of where you had problems in a different state. Is your party falling apart? There are those who said, look, after Buhari exits government, your party is going to fall apart. Those who predicted that if you lose election in 2023, there goes APC. How are you handling this situation in the state chapters?
No, first, Sheon, we didn't lose election. We won election at the national level. We won the presidential election. Our presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was declared winner of that election by the only agency approved by the Constitution to conduct our presidential election. He won that election and was declared winner. So, we are very excited and thankful to Nigerians for electing our candidate as president of the Federal Republic. So, that is settled. Even though, of course, we do respect those who choose to exercise their constitutional right to go to court. We respect that, and we encourage them to actually, go the full hog. But, what you refer to as, crisis and the possibility of implosion, there's no such thing. What we're witnessing in the party is normal. People who contested the election and individual party members who feel aggrieved by whatever reason, they're human beings. And the Constitution of Nigeria guarantees them the right to, ventilate, to canvass, remedial, procedures, to ventilate their grievances. We respect that. And some of them are doing that. And that is fine. So it's normal. There's nothing unusual about what is going on. And of course, because we won the election, you can imagine that a lot of people want to actually come out and, contest issues, whether at the state level or at the national level. That is normal. The point here is that our candidate and our now president-elect, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is a consummate politician. He understands and he feels the pulse of the party. He knows exactly what to do. And one of the things that is, that is he's confronted with, one is not just the duty to unite the party, it's the duty to unite the country.
But as your party had time to introspect on whatever has happened, you went into an election, with several other issues on. Have you sat down to look at those issues coming out of the elections?
Yes, we have sat down. We're still sitting down, and it's an unfinished business.
What have you discovered?
The whole question of unity of the party and of the country, it's an unfinished business. You don't exhaust it in 1 week, in 1 day, in 1 month, even in 1 year. Because sometimes people are very emotive about what they feel, whether they're coming from an ethnic, religious, or political standpoint. They feel that whole sense of legitimacy. Our argument is important, probably more important than others, trumps everything else. That's the way they present it. But the point is that the party is keenly aware of the importance of engagement in this moment.
Mr. Moka,
yes.
Why is the legitimacy of your victory at the presidential election been these heavily contested and criticized? It does look like the opposition is painting your victory and your mandate as illegitimate. Why so?
Self-serving. Self-serving. You know, there are people, unfortunately, in our democracy who can handle the fact that they lost. You know, and personally, I feel some level of sympathy for them. You know, you contest an election and you actually, you know, give it all you've got. You went into it hoping to win, but you don't win. Somebody else won. The candidate of the APC, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, won the election, was declared by INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission.
So does the agitation put a question mark on the legitimacy?
No, it doesn't.
Does your party feel in some way that maybe your victory is not widespread?
Oops, absolutely.
Maybe your victory is not widely acceptable.
No,
and there are those who are criticizing that there are some leaders across the world who are yet to come to terms with the victory of your party.
No, I don't think that that's the case. See, we have a ground norm that is called the Constitution of the Federal Republic. We have other laws, like the Electoral Act, and like, you know, whatever guidelines INEC may have issued. The Constitution says that INEC, being the legitimate and, you know, legally authorized agency to conduct elections, has done so, has declared winners in the election. Now, anybody else who did not win the election actually has the right to approach the third arm of government, which is the judiciary, to interrogate and, you know, attempt to upturn the outcome. You see, when I see people who have gone to court, you've gone to court. In the case of the PDP, the Labour Party, they have gone to court to contest the verdict of INEC.
But the issue of legitimacy is psychological.
No,
it is an acceptance between what is done and what and how the people perceive it.
No, you see,
so if there is a perception of illegitimacy, how does your party deal with it?
No.
Because do you realize that you need the buy-in of the people that your party wants to govern?
Shehu, the issue...
And I'm asking this question based on the feelers from what we are seeing, the agitation, the back and forth from the opposition party. No, and that's what I'm asking. I want to know how your party is feeling.
No, I agree with you. But I disagree on the question of the basis for legitimacy or illegitimacy. An election was conducted. The authorized agency declared our candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as the winner of that election. Now, the question of legitimacy is not an objective question. It's a subjective question. You know, if you say it's based on the psychology of people, psychology is subjective. It's not an objective question. Objectively, INEC counted the votes and declared Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to have won the election. Because they are authorized by the Constitution. Now, there's a presumption of legitimacy that's attached. People can attack that, they can question that, they can interrogate that. But that does not defeat the legal presumption that Asiwaju won the election.
But does the party understand that there is a work to be done to fix that gap?
Look, Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu, every statement he's uttered from the day he accepted his election as president-elect till today, every statement he's made has been in realization that this country, but you know, part of what I consider to be the most important mandate of this president-elect, you know, on our platform, is the duty to unite Nigeria, to bring Nigeria together, with the understanding of those who, you know, who challenge, who question the legitimacy of his election. He has said every word by the book, saying, you know what, I will be the president of Nigeria, of every Nigerian, not just of the APC or those who elected him, but even of those who voted against him and who are vocal today. He will be the president of Peter Obi. He will be the president of Atiku Abubakar as citizens of this country.
Does it mean that he will work with them in forming government? Is it possible?
He will, you know, do his duty as president-elect to unite this country, to bring everyone and every perspective and opinion and interest together. You know, you will see that in the coming days when he begins to announce his cabinet and begins to work with National Assembly, the 10th Assembly, to put in place the leadership of that assembly. He will do that. I have no doubt at all.
That takes me to the conversation I'd like us to anchor on, and which is the National Assembly politics.
Yes.
Your party has signified that there will be a zoning arrangement When is that meeting going to happen?
Soon, very soon. You know, right now there are consultations ongoing. But Shewa, I can tell you without equivocation that our party is keenly attentive to the urgency and the imperative of ensuring that there's fairness, there's equity, there's justice, and there's inclusion.
What does that mean to APC?
That means to APC, for instance, that in fashioning the leadership of the 10th Assembly, that the party will take into account in deciding on this question of zoning, issues that bring us together, that emphasize our unity rather than...
So let me ask you pointedly. You have a Muslim president-elect, a Muslim vice president-elect, and they're from different regions of the country.
Correct.
And if you look at that diagram on your screen, and the question mark on the undecided position, which are from the National Assembly, the question would be, how would you justify and how would you spread the issue of these are the loopholes in our politics? Issue of religion, issue of ethnicity, as much as we think that these are those gaps that we do not want to take advantage of, but then those sensibilities also needs to be attended to. In terms of religion and regional spread, is your party considering those? For example, the Senate president, are you considering going into the South?
You know, just a few weeks ago, the leadership of the party sat down with the president-elect and the National Assembly members-elect of our party to, have conversation, to begin to, bring people within that whole frame of understanding. What I can tell you is that our party is committed to doing fairness, doing justice, and doing equity.
You said it earlier, and
yes.
I'm asking precisely,
yes.
Are you considering religion and regional spread?
Look, listen.
If Bola Tinubu is from the Southwest,
yes.
Kashim Shettima is from the Northeast,
correct.
Where do you, for example, zone the Senate president?
Shemo,
could it be Southeast or South-South?
You see, sitting here, I am not able to, tell you Southeast or South-South.
You're an NWC member.
I am an NWC.
So it means something that if you guys have made up, except if you say tonight
yes.
that you have not made up your mind as a party, except you are thinking of relying on the expertise of your president-elect to take the lead, or the president, the sitting president, to take the lead. Who are you relying more? Because the party is supposed to be the one to sit in the center to arbitrate on this matter, isn't it?
Okay. That issue, what I can say is that that question is an overriding question that is under intense thought, review, discussion, and will in the coming days or weeks be decided upon by the All Progressive Congress, the APC. Of course, with its leadership, with the president-elect, and with all of the key stakeholders. What's important is not actually what the party does or doesn't do.
Yeah.
What's important is what the party does, with the understanding to advance the peace of this country. But I can assure you that the party will make decisions that are consistent with the expectations of Nigerians for justice, fairness, and equity on this question.
We need to close now.
Leadership of the 10th Assembly.
Before you go, Mr. Moka,
yes.
Will your party be setting up a board of trustees?
A board of trustees in what regard?
Do you have one?
We have a national working committee. We have a national executive committee. Now, if you are suggesting that the party needs to create, another platform or body, for the party, the truth is out there. What I can say is that the National Executive Committee of the party, the National Working Committee of which I'm a member, is determined to put before Nigerians and to do right by Nigerians.
So you don't need a board of trustees?
Justice and fair play.
So you don't need a board of trustees to run your party?
No, Chewa, I haven't said that. But I'm saying that we are interested in doing justice, equity, and
But that doesn't
justice.
answer my question. Does your party need a board of trustees?
A board of trustees? At what?
As an organ of the party?
You know what? I think that the party leadership, the president-elect, the new government that is in progress, will, I think, in consultation with all stakeholders, make the best decision.
So you don't have an answer for me, Mr.
I don't have an answer, and that is the best decision.
That doesn't sound like an answer.
Party.
You're just being political and being being diplomatic.
You know me. I'm not being diplomatic.
On this point.
No, I am not.
On several points tonight.
I'm not.
You have not been direct. You are not the Felix Moka I used to know.
No.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moka, for coming tonight.
Absolutely, I'm Felix Moka. I will always be Felix Moka.
The political
Thank you very
Felix
much.
Moka.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. The National Publicity Secretary of the APC, Mr. Felix Moka, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We'll take a break, everyone. But when we return on the other side, we'll be looking at security. A lot to learn in terms of the way forward for this country. And the figures are not anything friendly. I have experts that will break these down for us. Don't forget the incident that happened in Kaduna. 10 people kidnapped. The state government is already speaking about this. We'll be learning more when we return from this break, everyone. Join us again.
Experience the opulence and security of Swiss Traders. With over 30 years experience, exclusive with a touch of history and craftsmanship, Swiss Traders are made from the finest ancient aga and ivory wood. A range of exclusive armored doors, elegant interior doors, carefully crafted by world-renowned architects and engineers. At Swiss Trade, a door is much more, plus premium quality onyx stones and luxury interiors. Visit Swiss Trade today or call now. Swiss Trade, blend of beauty and security.
Ladies and gentlemen,
you see as it be now, they call me but no be me show. That's how some business owners will have a different name on their business account from the actual business name. Listen, don't let your customers be suspicious of your business. Sign up a business account with Money Points and get an account in your business name in minutes.
Whatever it takes to make sure you have a business account opened in your business name, we'll do it as your sure banker. Open a bank account in your business name with Money Point.
which kind of wire you gonna need to light up your light? Oh man, na quality wire. Now which kind of cable you gonna need to light up your house? Oh man, na quality cable. Coleman quality. Coleman wire. Coleman durable. Coleman cable. Coleman can't. Coleman cable for any kind of project. Coleman. Now come and be the come and see. Now come and be the Baba. Won't light up your life. Now come and be the Baba. Now come and be the C-O-L-E-M-A-A. Quality. Durable. Oh yeah. Now come and be the Baba.
Everyone for staying with us. The Kaduna State government has confirmed that 8 students were abducted along with other citizens when gunmen whisked away 10 victims from Government Day Secondary School in Awan Kashe local government area of the state. The government says they were not kidnapped in the school compound. According to a statement by the State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs in Kaduna State, Samuel Arwan, says that the students were on their way home from school when they met the bandits who had abducted all the residents. Abduction is the latest onslaught launched by gunmen that have wreaked havoc in the northwestern state, despite the efforts of the state government and security agencies. Well, the Buhari government, since it got into office in 2015, has been battling with dismantling the non-state actors causing mayhem and killing innocent citizens in different parts of the country. Well, wherever you may be in the country, what are the security challenges that you are facing? Is it banditry? Is it terrorist situation in the northeast, or violent crime and issues of sit at home in southeast region? What are the issues you're facing? How can we fix this problem? And so someone will say, can we continue like this? Definitely not. We can't continue to live with insecurity. But what are the solutions? What are the real challenges that we are facing? Tonight, we dedicate a lot of time to discuss this. Now, a new government will be coming. A Buhari government will be handing over to a Tinubu administration. What are the challenges, the burden that the Tinubu administration will be dealing with? Tonight, I have an expert, two experts actually. I have the Director General of the Institute of Police and Security Policy Research, a lawyer, and a member of a presidential working group on police reform, Dr. Charles Omole. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And I also have with us a scholar on extreme terrorism and a scholar with the Tony Blair Foundation, Mr. Bulama Bukati is also a lawyer. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time tonight.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. We are faced with a lot. And, you know, when we have this, the caliber of the two of you, yourself and Bulama, it does look to me that we might have some very purposeful conversation tonight. But give me an understanding. The Kaduna incident is there, the Northwest. And perhaps as you show our viewers, some of the research work that's been done at the Tony Blair Foundation maybe can propel us to talk more about what we have seen over the last few years. These are the numbers of people that have been killed over the last few years. We do know, if you look at it right there on your screen, in the northwest and the north central region of the country, about 30,000 militias have emerged in the past few years. 100 groups in different, I mean, these 30,000 in different groups, and about 20,000 people have been killed since about 2016. Let's flip the page and look at some other figures that we have. Between 29th of May 2016 and 29th May 2022, 55,430 people were killed by terrorist groups and criminal gangs operating across the country. What more do we know? Let's flip the page. So look at how things have gone in terms of insecurity and the number of internally displaced people in Nigeria, which has been increasing since 2017. President Buhari got into office, Dr. Omole, and said, look, I want to tackle insecurity. But increasingly, we've seen the situation, moving and morphing into different kind of thing. What are we facing? Existential threats to our nation, or how would you describe it?
Well, thank you. I think the problem we have is government, not just this government, since 1999, successive government have not really tackled the fundamentals of our insecurity. They are dealing with things at the top, but they are not going to the root and branch. Let me give you an example. You know, there are usually two security posture, what they call civil security in any country. You see that you have the centralized security where you have, like, say, in terms of civil security, like national police, or you have a disaggregated system like you have in the United States where you have 18,000 police departments, where everybody have their own police departments. You see, the problem in Nigeria is we are not in either camp.
Where are we? Where do
we are in no man's land because we have, in quote, a centralized police. The Constitution says there can only be one police in Nigeria. Yet, if you look at what police do in other countries, you can map it against 9 different other agencies in Nigeria that do the same thing. So the police has been cannibalized.
A duplication of duty.
Overlapping mandates all over the place. You know, and National Assembly successive ones are part of the problem here. So you have a situation, in fact, I mean, there was a situation, many people might not be aware, in Kogi State, where civil defense took the police to court, saying that you're encroaching on our turf. the appeal court ended up saying the police can do pretty much anything they like. So we have a situation where you have the Nigerian police that is backed by the Constitution. Then you have National Assembly creating policing-related agencies. I mean, in anywhere in the world, if you're a civil servant and you steal, they call the police. In Nigeria, we created a different agency, ICPC. We've cannibalized the whole thing. And what that creates is we are not in the camp number one of centralized policing, because there are several federal duplicating agencies. We are not in the other camp of disaggregated ones where there are different policing departments. But the solution, even with that problem, the solution is we need an effective intelligence blanket, which we don't have in Nigeria. What I mean by that is, the National Security Agencies Act, which controls our security agencies and also relates to the Office of National Security Advisors. That law is outdated. But you know the problem? That law has now been embedded into the Constitution, which means to amend that act, you have to go through constitutional amendment instead of amending an act the way it should be amended. So we have a situation where we have an act that is not fit for purpose. We have security agencies that are competing instead of cooperating. So that's number one, failure of intelligence. Number two is there is no effective early warning system in Nigeria. There are technology solutions to make that possible. Number three, because of time, in terms of what is causing this problem, is the fact that, we have, as a country, we have what's it called, round pegs in square holes in terms of people we appoint to several positions. Let me give you an example. Since 1999, all our national security advisors have been people from uniformed services. But the predominant national security problem we have is internal in nature, not external. We're not fighting any external war. If you go and look at the research in the US, say from 1930 to date, you find out that 55% of all the NSAs were civilians, experts in security. Only 45 are
more from intelligence sector and,
exactly.
And research, academic.
But we are doing the same thing in Nigeria. Bring a retired general, and our security is getting worse. So the new government needs to think out of the box and say, look, we need creativity here.
So we can't expect so much from Buhari government. So we are probably just trying to give some kind of agenda setting for the Tinubu presidency. Is that right?
That's correct.
Because as it is right now, just a few weeks, it's almost too late.
No, it's not almost late. It is too late. I mean, there's nothing much that can be done by this government in terms of, securing the country. The point is, have they tried? Yes. But the problem in Nigeria has always been we are focusing on kinetic security. We buy, firearms, buy jets, that has its place. But we all know that you don't win internal battles that way. You need to focus on the non-kinetics. You need to win hearts and minds. You need to deal with ungoverned spaces. And more importantly, you mentioned them earlier, you need to deal with several non-state actors that are all over the country. It's a major problem. Because once those non-state actors exist, it's difficult to get rid of them.
And we have a lot of cells across the country.
Over 100.
Even on our campuses, outside the campuses, around the campuses, we have different court groups.
You see, the challenge is this. Politicians will use some of this. The pattern is the same all over the world. The Americans, they trained Osama bin Laden, they no longer could control him. It became a problem for them. In Sudan, the Sudanese government trained the Janjaweed. Then I got to a point as mercenaries. They no longer could control the Janjaweed. Therefore happened. The same thing in Nigeria. You start with the Niger Delta. You have the politicians use these thugs, harm them to win political elections. They won the election. These guys were left with guns. What can we do? That's how the militancy started in Niger Delta. Same thing come up north. The same thing. Politicians use people to win elections. That's the core of Boko Haram. You see, the idea that Boko Haram is a religious
fundamentally,
entity,
yeah,
is false. It's only partly correct. Let me give you an example. There was a report I was reading where a guy was captured as a Boko Haram combatant. Why did he join Boko Haram? He said the man was having an affair with his wife. This is the north in Borno State. He said the man was having an affair with his wife. He went to report it to the police. But because the man was more powerful, the police arrested him, the husband, Instead, he was put in jail for 30 days. He said he vouched that when he left that prison that he would join Boko Haram. The first place he would attack is that police station, and that's exactly what he did. After he joined Boko Haram, the first place he attacked was that police station. Now, was I Muslim fundamentalist? No. So now, you know, Boko Haram is almost like a broad church, bringing all kinds of people. Yeah, there are religious elements to it. So we can't just deal with this thing purely on the kinetic level.
I mean, if you were Bola Tinubu, the president-elect, how worried would you be?
I'll be worried in terms of what I'm inheriting. But the solutions are also easy.
Does he even know? Because that's another issue. That people who are coming into government, who are taking the baton, are not totally aware of the situation. And they get into office and they are overwhelmed. They don't even know where to start. But because they don't know the enormity of the problem.
Okay, 2 years ago, the House of Reps did a National Security Summit. In fact, the number one recommendation in that summit was that the police should have 1,000 officers in every state trained to be proactive standby force. In case there's a problem, they go there. That has not been implemented. So what happens? There's an attack somewhere, then they begin to mop up officers from different police stations. How many officers do you have? We have 2. Okay, send them. By the time you mop up officers around Abuja, the crime has been committed, the person has left. So we have this reactive posture, which has to change. Every nation must have a standby unit in every state.
America has a National Guard. If there is a national disaster, a national emergency, they bring them in.
Even if we bring it to the lower level in the U.S., they have the SWAT team. The SWAT team in the U.S., they don't do day-to-day policing. They don't even leave their station. They train every day unless they're on duty.
And so, they move on a tactical level.
Exactly. They call them, there's a problem, they go. But when that happens in Nigeria, you see our police start calling different police stations. How many people do you have? Because we don't have the personnel.
Just a moment.
So we're too reactive.
Yeah, I'll come back to you. There are a lot that I need to extract from you tonight, Doc. But let me go to Mr. Bulama, who's done also a lot of research on extremism and terrorism issues around. Man, I extracted some of the figures from a report, some of the information we read out earlier, from a report that came out of your research and that of the Blair Foundation. Give us an understanding of the enormity of what we are facing, because I like to also paint this picture so that we can know, and the government that is on the sideline waiting to come into power, know exactly what they're up against and how to deal with it. So we're setting an agenda. Give us the enormity of the problem that we have on our hands, Mr. Bukati.
Well, thank you very much. Security is unfortunately a very serious challenge for Nigeria. There are 3 main armed groups, as we know. The Boko Haram crisis in the northeast is still raging on. The northwest is battling, and the northwest and the north central are battling with the bandits crisis, but also communal issues in some states. And then you have the situation in the southeast, where you have the Eastern Security Network, or the unknown gunmen, unleashing havoc in that part of the country. If you look at it, Sheun, the Nigerian military is deployed to over 90% of Nigeria, and therefore you can say Nigeria is a country at war with itself without formal declaration. We are at war with ourselves without formal declaration, because the military is only expected to fight when there is war, but it is the military that is deployed everywhere in Nigeria. From the data you projected, under the Buhari administration in the first 7 years, from 2015 to 2022, over 55,000 Nigerians have been killed. And as we speak today, over 1.4 million Nigerians are displaced. They are internally displaced people, but there is also a large number in Cameroon, in Chad, and Niger, Nigerians displaced and becoming refugees in neighboring countries. Now, of course, the Kaduna attack is one, but it is a reminder, the attack on students in Kaduna is a reminder that education is under attack in Nigeria. These students are reported to be returning home from school. Just imagine, Sheun, this happened on Monday. On the Tuesday that students are walking to school or back from school, how do you think they would walk or back from school? I am sure many will not even go to school. And for those who would turn up to school, they would be petrified And effective teaching and learning can never take place under a situation of fear, under atmosphere of fear. We have seen attacks on over 10 schools over the past 18 months or so. As we speak, 11 students of the federal government, Birni Nyawuli in Kebbi State, 11 of them are still in the captivity of their horrific kidnappers 22 months after they have been abducted. 2 students of the Federal University, Gusau, were abducted a few days ago. Education is under attack. Our roads are not safe. Our homes are not safe. Villages are devastated. Some of the villages, hundreds of them, are under the control of Boko Haram or bandits or the Eastern Security Network or the unknown gunmen, as they are called in the southeast. Nigeria is in a very, very serious situation, and this insecurity is potentially going to be an existential threat for our country unless and until it is handled with the care and the seriousness it needs.
So if you look at, so I like to measure things so that we know where we're coming from and where we are and where we are headed. Now, if you look at over 1.4 million, like you mentioned, that have been internally displaced in Nigeria in different parts, and you have talked about almost 55,000 Nigerians that have been killed just within the time President Buhari got into office. So I then look at it, for those who have criticized that there hasn't been enough done in terms of manpower that have been given to our different security agents, for example, the military. And there is a commitment made by the Buhari government that is going to empower and spend a lot of money. We saw the purchase of Super Tucano aircraft from the United States. That is on one hand. We've sought different kind of purchase agreement with several other parties across the globe. But you look at how much that have been spent, the efforts that are being put into this, does it in any way have any effect on the activities of these violent gunmen or attackers?
So to be fair to Buhari, he made headway in the fight against Boko Haram. When he came in, Boko Haram's bombs were literally raining in many states in northern Nigeria, especially bombs in Abuja, bombs in Kaduna, bombs in Kano, Borno and Yobe, and all over the place. And the Buhari administration did well by tackling Boko Haram's bombings and, you could say, confining the group to the northeastern part of Nigeria. And we do not no longer see their attacks in the northwest, unfortunately, except that they have recently expanded to the north central and even parts of the northwest. Now, while Buhari was tackling Boko Haram, the bandits or the bandit gangs in the northwest and the north central became deadlier and more sophisticated. And that it was under the Buhari administration that we started seeing abduction of whole schools, abduction of whole villages, abduction of groups of individuals. Before the Buhari administration, there were kidnappings, isolated cases of kidnappings, and we know that these people ran away when they had the gunshots or the siren of police officers. But today, they have attacked the Nigeria Defense Academy. They have attacked our trend line from Abuja to Kaduna. They have attacked, they have brought down Nigerian Army helicopter, Nigerian Air Force helicopter. So you could say this situation within the Northwest and the North Central exacerbated under the Buhari administration. And of course, it was under the Buhari administration that IPOP or the Eastern Security Network picked up arms. And so you could say there was some headway made in one part of Nigeria, some progress in the northeast, and Boko Haram is still deadly. I need to emphasize that, but it has been much more weakened. It has been weakened very much under the Buhari administration, and then the bandits have become more, and the Eastern Security Network has picked up arms. Now that's one thing. When it comes to what the Buhari administration promised in terms of security, of an estimated 210 million people, but if you put together our police and military, they are in the range of 400,000. Much has been made about the numbers, but what some people don't consider, and I think Dr. with him, is that we have 17 security and law enforcement agencies in Nigeria. It's not just the police and it's not just the police and the army. We have 17 security and law enforcement agencies in Nigeria. And if you counted their number, they are in the range of 1 million security forces, an estimated million security and law enforcement agencies if you put all of them together. But the problem is lack of synergy and cooperation between the security and law enforcement agencies, 17 of them or so, even though all of them are under the federal government, even though all of them are answerable to one person who is the president, but they do not synergize and cooperate. They act in silos. Sometimes they compete, and sometimes the competition is unhealthy.
If you have your way, Mr. Bukati, would you be suggesting that they should be morphed into one as the police? Because
no, I don't think they should be brought into one, but I think there should be one-stop agency for all of them. They should be brought together. They should develop one security policy, and they should work together and pursue Nigeria's security together. Of course, each of them have their own roles. I will just give you one example. One agency we don't emphasize enough are immigration and customs. Sheun, the three ingredients of insecurity in Nigeria are drugs, guns, and ultra-powerful motorbikes. None of them are made in Nigeria. All of them are imported into Nigeria from other countries. And most of them are imported illegally. Drugs are illegal. Guns are illegal. Even motorbikes, some of them are illegal in some states of Nigeria, but they are imported into our country because our borders are porous. And therefore, what you need is to build up the capacity of our immigration and custom. When it comes to logistics and communication, you need to do more with regards to the army. But what you need to build more is the police. None of our security agencies is as burdened as the police. The police is the most burdened in terms of responsibilities amongst our security and law enforcement agencies. And unfortunately, they are the most deprived when it comes to money, logistics, training, and employment of qualified persons. And unless and until you get the police right, you will never get Nigeria's security and law enforcement right.
Now, I have so many questions. I'm a bit overwhelmed right now, and I'm so emotional about the situation of things. It is not that we do not have the numbers and the boots on the ground. Over 1 million, although there are those who will argue that 1 million or so security officers across the country are not enough for over 200 million people. That ratio is highly insufficient. That's what some people will argue. But you have done a lot of research in terms of extremism. I mean, do we have a sense of realization on how to deal with this problem? Because I understand that sometimes these things are based on issues of how our societal breakdown, and that's how these extremist tendencies grow. Is there any active realization on how to deal with this?
Yeah, there is. The first one is that we must use the kinetic approach. And that's because these extremist or terrorist groups are killing innocent civilians and destroying their homes without any cause. And if a group is using arms against civilians, the state has no option but to use force against them. But force enough is necessary, but force is necessary, but force enough is not sufficient. And that's why you need to address the socio-economic and political grievances of these groups. For example, Dr. mentioned the Boko Haram crisis. He is right to say not all Boko Haram fighters are ideologically motivated. But, I mean, the leadership of Boko Haram is ideologically motivated. And if you look at the economic or agricultural principle of 80-20 ratio, it says 80% of the damage is done by 20%. And I can tell you the leadership of Boko Haram that is convincing young people to believe that killing innocent people is not a crime but a religious right is the glue that holds Boko Haram together. And unless and until you address them, you cannot address those who are using Boko Haram's clothes or using Boko Haram's name in order to commit crimes and to loot money. And so I think addressing the ideology is very important. And I think in that you need to work with mainstream imams and religious leaders and community leaders, even traditional rulers, to address that. And to address that, what you need to do is to prevent recruitment. Preventing recruitment requires imams working with young people to make them understand that the Boko Haram version is a false, twisted, perverse version of Islam.
It does look to me that there needs to be a broadening and a wide range of approach to solving this problem. But then we need to have the political will to be able to resolve this issue. I'll be coming to you in a moment, Dr. Omole, but we need to take a breather. I'll be right back.
My name is Architect Adeyemi Makinde, Project Director, Adron Homes and Properties Limited. I'd like to introduce to you our latest housing product, the Oremi series. This product is designed with the concept of encouraging communal living amongst residents living within the same environment. We have the 2-bedroom bungalow units called Oremi, 3-bedroom bungalow unit called Oremi Atata, and we have 3-bedroom duplex units called Oremi Gongon. Join us and key into the Oremi series today.
The Oremi series will boast of the following: maximum security with CCTV, swimming pool, playground, recreational area, gym, solar street lights, adequate parking space, excellent infrastructure, well laid out roads and drainage system, plus many more.
Adron Homes, making the incredible affordable.
Experience the opulence and security of Swiss Trade Doors. With over 30 years experience, exclusive with a touch of history and craftsmanship, Swiss Trade Doors are made from the finest ancient aga and ivory wood. A range of exclusive armored doors, elegant interior doors, carefully crafted by world-renowned architects and engineers. At Swiss Trade, a door is much more, plus premium quality onyx stones and luxury interiors. Visit Swiss Trade today or call now. Swiss Trade, blend of beauty and security.
Which kind wire you gonna need to light up your light? Oh, man, the quality wire. Now which kind cable you gonna need to light up your house? Oh, man, the quality cable. Coleman quality. Coleman wire. Coleman durable. Coleman cable. Coleman can't. Coleman cable for any kind of project. Coleman. Now Coleman be the come and see. Now come and be the Baba. Come and light up your life. Now come and be the Baba. Now come and be the COLEMAN. Quality, quality. Durable, oh yeah. Now come and be the Baba.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. We have Dr. Charles Omole, a lawyer and a very, very sound security and intelligence purse expert. And, of course, Mr. Bulama Bukati, who is also a lawyer and a scholar on extremist and security issues. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. Intelligence. So, some would say that is a major, that's in fact, that is our Achilles heel in this regard. Do you agree?
Oh, yes. I remember, was it 2-3 years ago, all the commissioners of police in Nigeria, all the AIGs and the DIGs, they gathered in Lagos. I was one of the people that trained them. And I was training on intelligence-led policing. And I remember one of the AIGs who was in charge of force intelligence took me up on an issue that, oh, no, when I was saying that we don't have sufficient informants, we were unable to infiltrate many of these groups. And he said, oh, we can. Then I asked him, how many informants actively do you have right now? He said, none. I said, so a whole Nigerian police, you don't have a single informant? This was 2-3 years ago. He said, no. He said, but we can get people to use as informant if we need to. For me, that would answer the question. Again, reactive rather than proactive. You know, the last leader of Boko Haram that was killed, an intelligence report said that he was actually killed by 2 of his bodyguards. That report now said that those 2 bodyguards were actually planted by ISWAP into Boko Haram 3 years earlier. So you have ISWAP who penetrate and infiltrate Boko Haram for 3 years. A whole Nigerian nation cannot. I mean, they make some of them, they make mockery of us as though we don't have intelligence. Every terrorist organization in the world that have been defeated, there's always the use of penetrators and informants. Why are we not using that? Because our security agencies are busy with procurements and they are busy with competing and building their own empire and competing with one another. The incoming administration needs to put the nation first and understand that these people, they must work together. Now, what needs to happen is that we need to throw an intelligence blanket over all these agencies. How was it done in the US? I told you they have 18,000 police departments. After 9/11, they discovered that all the terrorists were in one database or the other of different security agencies. So they created the Department of Homeland Security. Now, when Homeland Security was created, every single police department in the US, all 18,000 plus of them, were instructed to store their data in a particular format. Every day, you don't even need anybody to interact. Homeland Security goes and mops up data. So if they arrest you in Texas and they input you into the system, in 24 hours, Homeland Security will know you've been arrested in Texas. Nobody needs to tell them. They just mops up that data on a daily basis. And they are in a position to join the dots. For example, you go to Texas, Mr. X, you buy 20 kilograms of fertilizer. Texas, as far as they are concerned, only 20 kilo. But you go to 7 other states to buy the same 20 kilo. Homeland Security will join the dots. And so hold on, this Mr. X is buying in several states.
And this is an ingredient for
bombs. So they will join the dots and say, oh, something is wrong here. A single state police couldn't join that dots because all they know is what happens in their precinct. So that is what we don't have in Nigeria. We don't have that intelligence blanket.
An intelligent intelligence network.
Yes. So if you, I mean, I just don't want to, you know, sometimes I don't like talking, but it looks as though we are washing our dirty linen. You can leave the prison in Sokoto tomorrow and go into Lagos to go and join the Nigerian police. They won't find out because you would self-declare.
There is no records.
I bet
you check.
Look, I went to the police, again, I'm talking of years ago, things could have improved. I went to the fingerprint center of Nigerian police in Lagos 4 years ago. Everything was in filing cabinet. They were using magnifying glass to read what's it called, fingerprint. And I asked the commissioner, who is a friend, who was leading, I said, I was not complaining. He said, everybody that is sentenced to prison, the prison service is supposed to send their fingerprint and details to them so that they capture that. I said, when was the last time you received anything from the prison? He said, 5 months ago. So, look.
There's a lot of loopholes.
There's so lot loopholes everywhere.
The system is, there's no digital trace.
No tracking.
No record, virtually nothing to work with.
And these are things that have been done
I just
in other
hope
places.
that the government or those who are trying to come into power are listening. Because these are also important for our nation. Because a nation that is battling with insecurity will have a problem concentrating on national development.
Absolutely.
And we're going to be backward as long as we're not putting attention into the right places. If there is something that needs to be done, Dr. Male, you said that it's almost too late for the Buhari government, who has said that it wants to perform magic before, that Nigerians will be shocked at what they will do with security before they leave office. But if we are focusing on the incoming government, which is the Bola Tinubu and his team, what do you think that they need on the very first day of office for Nigeria to know that they are serious? What would you be asking them to do?
Well, I would, first of all, want them to focus on who they appoint into security portfolios. enough of people with purely kinetic experience. We need people with intelligence and general internal security experience.
And research-based security?
Exactly, evidence-based, yes. Yeah. That's number one. Because in Nigeria, I've said many times, we don't have intelligence-led policing, we have police-led intelligence. Police will arrest you first and gather intelligence rather than the other way around. That's number one. Number two, they need to reform the intelligence architecture. Generally, on paper right now, the National Security Advisor, his office is supposed to be the coordinating point for, there's a National Joint Intelligence Board. But again, I don't know the current data now, but 3 years ago when I looked at it, that board, they don't meet. So it's just like National Policing Council. That's on the law says that the president consults the National Policing Council before appointing IG. We know that never happened in many times ago. Maybe this last one it happened, but successive president just wake up and sack IG. So there are several things that are not being implemented. So number one, right personnel. Number two, a major reform of the intelligence network. And number three, you need to digitize our security infrastructure. Yeah. That's important.
Let me go to Mr. Bukati. Now, so we're looking at what needs to be done. And we're setting an agenda for the Buhari government. I mean, the Tinubu government, because according to Dr. Mali, it's almost too late in the day for the Buhari government to do anything if they have not done in the last 8 years. Well, what would you be asking them to do urgently because of some of these problems? You highlighted Northwest and North Central as the hotbed of some of these kidnapping and some of these extremist activities.
Look, if you are talking about the Buhari administration, I think they only have 2 months. I would be surprised if they achieved anything substantial in 2 months that they did not achieve in 7 years and 10 months. But I think they still have a role to play in the 60 days that we have. If you remember, the 2015 election was delayed by 6 weeks because the security forces said they could not guarantee the security of the polls. And in the 6 weeks that it was postponed for, the Jonathan administration made substantial progress in the fight against Boko Haram in the northeast. And so I think the Buhari administration can do something in the 8 or so weeks that they do have. And the least they could do is to hold the situation as it is so that things would not continue to exacerbate before the Tinubu administration comes in. As for the Tinubu administration, the first thing the Tinubu administration needs to do is for them to hit the ground running. You remember, Shewan, that when Buhari became president, insecurity was so endemic in our country, but he took 6 months to appoint ministers. And Nigeria is so complex a country that it cannot be run by one man, but Buhari tried to run it as a one-man show for 6 months. We cannot afford that under the Tinubu administration. And therefore, what I would urge the Tinubu presidency to do is to nominate ministers within the first 3 weeks of the administration, because we need them to do things urgently. The second thing is for them to recognize that there are 3 key challenges. There are many challenges, but there are 3 big challenges before the Tinubu-Shetima administration. The first one is security. The second one is national unity. And the third one is the economy. All of these 3 are interlinked because poverty and unemployment contribute to insecurity. Insecurity exacerbates poverty and unemployment. And where you have poverty and unemployment and insecurity, the country gets divided. For example, the young people on social media that are fanning the flames of division and hate would not be able to do that if they have good paying jobs. They would be focusing on their jobs, they would be their family, they would be focusing on their family, and therefore they need to focus on these 3 things: security, national unity, and the economy. And I think that's very important. When it comes to bolstering the security capacity of our security and law enforcement agencies, one thing that the Tinubu administration needs to do urgently is for them to seriously consider the role of the federal government in security and law enforcement vis-a-vis the role of the states. Let them seriously consider, does the federal government want to continue to retain exclusively the powers of law enforcement in Nigeria? or do they want to delegate some of the functions to states? And if they are going to do that, what functions? How will the architecture work? How would you avoid conflicts between the state and the federal government or among states? That's very important to be decided. And number two, the Tinubu administration needs to bring governors on board. Because as we speak, I cannot remember one meeting by the Buhari administration between the federal government and the states in the Northwest to bring all of them on board on security and law enforcement. And that's why the Zamfara state governor started issuing amnesty to bandits, while the Katsina state governor said, no, we are not going to issue amnesty, and then said we are going to issue amnesty, while the Kaduna state government said, no, there is no dialogue with bandits or kidnappers. Remember, Sheon, that all of these crimes, kidnapping, possession of firearms, and armed robbery, all of them are federal offenses. Of course, armed robbery has been made a state offense under the Robbery and Firearms Act, but states are usurping the powers of the federal government, and the federal government is not saying anything because they know that they have failed. And because there is no coordination and synergy between the states and the federal government. And I think the Tinubu administration will do well to bring everyone on board, the governors on board in this fight.
Gentlemen, we need to close now. So I have 1 minute apiece. And this is when I said it to Dr. Omole during the break, he almost fell off his chair. And I like to also anchor, and I like to know, I'm very inquisitive, what do we do with our satellite ability? I know sometimes that we bought space in the satellite, and what are we using it for? There was an operation by the United States on Nigerian soil to extract an American that was being abducted by terrorists. And that was done successfully. America has done it in the case of Osama bin Laden. They went in there and did all they needed to. They did it also recently under the Biden administration. Under the Trump administration too. In terms of satellites and digitally, remotely controlled operation and tactical operation in that sense, what can we do in 60 seconds to wrap up the conversation with you, Mr. Bulama?
Yeah, I think there is a big role for technology, and the Nigerian security and law enforcement system needs to be digitized, as Dr. Omole has made the case for. And intelligence-driven security is what is reigning in the world. You can't continue to do things uphead when it comes to security and law enforcement. But two important things in addition, Sheun, is the need for bilateral and multilateral security and intelligence cooperation with our neighbors. You cannot defeat Nigeria's insecurity without cooperating actively with Cameroon, Niger, and Chad. And finally, corruption, misappropriation of funds, and mismanagement of funds is endemic in our security and law enforcement sector. And that has got to be addressed. You cannot make any progress if you do not flush out corruption and mismanagement of resources.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mole. Just 60 seconds in that regard, the question I asked.
Well, in terms of intelligence, the infrastructure is already there in the country for that to be done. But I, again, lead emphasis on the soft power Nigeria have and on the non-kinetic stuff. For example, what stopped all the states that have borders with external borders in Nigeria? What stops those governors, for example, making French a compulsory language? As a nation, all our neighbors, they're all French speaking. So part of soft power is be able to understand what's happening on the other side. So we have to think, asymmetric, in the way we attack this, not just about raw power alone, but clearly, yes, there's a place for intelligence reform. There's a place for, more of the non-kinetic stuff, and then, of course, economic development in our community.
We're totally out of time. If you are to recruit more police, because a lot of people said we need more police, what number do you think will be sufficient?
I don't think we need more police officers. I'm controversial in that, because if you look at it, in the United Kingdom, for example, in the last 15 years, they've been reducing the number of their armed forces, because they've said that the wars of the future will not be fought by boots on the ground. It's going to be fought by technology. So really, we don't need physically more. The most secure nations on earth have the lowest police-to-people ratio. So it's not just about numbers. It's about how we use the ones we have.
I will drag you by. If it need me dragging you by the trouser, yourself and Mr. Bulama, we need to convoke a national security summit on this program at some point. And I hope that it's been beneficial for everyone who has listened tonight, because we try to target the incoming government and give them a template on how to run in terms of national security. But thank you so much, Mr. Bukati and Dr. Mole. Thank you so much indeed,
Thanks for having me.
It's such a very purposeful conversation. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I'll see you tomorrow again. That is, in fact, something that have in the bag that you don't want to miss. I'll see you 7 p.m. tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Welcome to Elections 101 in 5, an illustrative guide for concise, simplified, and accurate information on the Nigeria's electoral process. The show is brought to you by IGA Africa and supported by the UNDP. My name is Samson Itodo, and let's get started with the topic of the day. You may have heard about rerun and supplementary elections. Some may say there's no difference between them, but tonight we establish the difference between these two types of elections. As usual, we went on the streets, and here are attempts by some Nigerians to answer this question.
I don't know anything about that one. I told you that English we speak.
Rerun, I think it's something that is done and done again.
If election done like this, they have to do another one.
So rerun means where election took place, but it wasn't that good enough. So by their own judgment, they will now order for another rerun so that the people will be captured completely.
Fair attempt, right? Now, let's get the specific details as outlined in both the Electoral Act and the regulations, for governing our elections. And the law is very clear that where an election is declared null and void, so where an election is cancelled in one or more polling units due to either overvoting or other reasons, another date shall be fixed for what is called supplementary election. That is what the law actually says, that that supplementary election will hold in the affected polling units, and results or a winner cannot be declared until election has been conducted in those polling units where elections were cancelled. This is the main condition for a supplementary election. So in other words, a supplementary election is only conducted in the affected polling units where election is declared null and void, or election is cancelled due to overvoting, or things like where INEC cannot deploy to a polling unit, or where BVAS fails to accredit any voter in the polling unit, or there's electoral violence in that polling unit. In that case, a supplementary election is conducted. So, supplementary election is an election ordered by INEC to complete an election. On the other hand, a rerun election. A rerun election is an election ordered by a court for an entire constituency or parts of a constituency. Now, as part of the electoral process, the law allows candidates and political parties to challenge the outcomes of elections in a tribunal or courts, either through elections petition. But where a court finds that an election was either wrongly conducted or there are cases of election malpractice, the court may declare a rerun election and direct INEC to conduct election in certain constituencies. So that's the fundamental difference between a rerun election and a supplementary election. For a supplementary election, INEC conducts the election due to issues like overvoting or where election has been declared null and void in those places. Whereas in a rerun election, those elections are elections ordered by the court. And that's Elections 101 in 5. Now you know the fundamental difference between rerun and supplementary elections. Use this information to monitor the process leading to the next election. Vigilance will make your vote count. If you have any questions or topics you would like us to treat, please reach out to us using any of the handles or the social media platforms displayed on your screen. Remember, collection of PVCs is ongoing nationwide at INEC local government offices, and it will end on January 22nd, 2023. Please collect your PVC and get ready to vote. And don't wait until the last minute. Thank you for watching. I am Samson Itodo. Remember, your vote can make a difference. Vote wisely. See you next time.
Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com, click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere.